Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and turn notifications on so that you can get the latest notification about my new tutorials.
Hello and welcome to Fawad walkthrough videos. As I said earlier in my previous video, today we are going to look at something different. We are going to look at Linux Mint installation. So we are going to look at how we can install Linux Mint on VMware Workstation. I have VMware Workstation 15.5 over here. So I have already downloaded Linux Mint. Um, my previous video actually explains even how you can download Linux Mint Edition. So I have downloaded Linux Mint and we are going to install Cinnamon edition of it, Cinnamon desktop. If you need to know more which different flavors we have of the different desktops, what we can install in Linux Mint, of course you can watch my other tutorial which explains about different desktop version and their differences. So let's start with this video. What we are going to do is we are going to create a new virtual machine over here, and we are going to use custom, for example, over here, and I'll use this, and I'll go to Linux, and over here I don't see Linux Mint over here, of course, in the list. But what I can do is I can pick up other kernel, which is other Linux 5.x later and 64-bit kernel, and I'll click on next. Now I'll just browse it to the location where I would like to keep it. I have created a folder for Linux Mint over here, so I'm going to name it Linux Mint over here, and I'm going to click next. I'll use 2 processors and 2 cores just to make it real quick. For the RAM, I'll choose 4 GB. You can go for 1 GB, 2 GB. System requirements again I have discussed in the previous tutorial. We'll click on next over here. We'll keep NAT, next, next, SCSI, and then we'll go next over here. Next, and for the disk, I'm going to choose 20 GB, for example, and then I'll click next over here and next. Before I do anything, before I finish it, I don't need printer over here, for example, currently, and I would need to point it to my uh, software location. So I'm going to point it to Linux Mint 19.3 Cinnamon ISO file. Alright, and I'm going to close this and I'll finish it up. So now my Linux Mint machine is over here, so I'm going to power it on. And you see over here, now we have different options. We can start Linux Mint. We have possibility to check start and compatibility mode. We have OEM install for manufacturers. Let's say if you are a retailer and you want to sell a Linux Mint built in the laptop, you can do that. We can run integrity check. We can run hardware detection, which is a new feature they have added in this release. We have boot from local drive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start Linux Mint directly from here. It takes little time to load the files because this is going to load the testing Linux Mint, which would have a desktop edition, and then from there we'll take it forward. So if you see over here, my Linux Mint is up as a trial edition. Now I can try it directly from here, or if I want, I can just simply click on install Linux Mint, because we were supposed to install Linux Mint over here. So I'm going to double click on this one. Alright, I am going to choose my language as English. Then I can choose my keyboard layout. If you want, you can choose any other keyboard language, but I'm going to use English US. I'll say continue over here. Install third-party software for graphic and Wi-Fi hardware. Currently, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to click continue because I'm going with the plain next installation. Over here, we have, like normal Linux, we have option to erase disk and install Linux Mint. We have option to encrypt the new Linux Mint installation for security. You have use LVM with the Linux Mint installation, or you can do something else over here. This something else is really useful when you want to have dual boot, so we probably look into it in the later tutorials. So we are going to click on install now, and this is just a warning message which says if you continue, the changes listed below will be written to the disk, otherwise you will be able to make further changes manually and stuff are related to that. And we'll say click continue over here. I can choose from here any region where I want this to be, and I'll click on next. So I'm just going to name it as Fawad, and I'm going to name it as Fawad Mint. Alright, or maybe I can say cinnamon. Alright, and I'll just enter the password now. Alright, if I want to encrypt my whole folder, of course I can do it from here, but as I said, I'm going to keep it as simple as that. I'm going to click on continue over here. Now it would of course copy files, and then it would start the installation of Linux. If you see over here, you can see different snapshot what features they have added in this. Now you have capability to browse web inside. Features which are available as a software and services, you have Firefox, Netflix, YouTube, which you can run on the browser. You have Spotify, you have Rhythm Box, which is available for your music. Then you have media players, you have celluloid, you have MPV, you have VLC, which you can install or you can create run on this machine. Then you have, for photos, you have Pix, Drawing, GIMP, Inkscale, and if you go further, you have Stay Connected. You have different I would say messenger tools, and then you have Productive, where you have Office, which is actually basically Linux based Office, LibreOffice Writer, you have LibreOffice Calculator, LibreOffice Impress, Draw, Base, etc. People who are aware of Linux, of course, they know about this. So it's kind of Office product. Then you have other softwares. You can have Dropbox, you can have Minecraft games, Steam, Blender, different softwares you can have with this installation. And on top of it, you can also have VirtualBox inside Linux Mint. This is just your to customize your desktop. You can change appearance, background, effects, fonts, etc. We'll see these things when we will have later tutorials where we would be talking about the inside of Linux Mint. So copying completed. Now it is installing the system. So we have three different edition of Linux Mint. In terms of their desktop, we have Cinnamon, we have Mate, and we have XFCE. XFCE is the lightest version, less graphics. Cinnamon is the most graphical interface. I mean, it's the fully colored, full-fledged graphics, and Mate is in middle of both of them. And then of course, when we talk about more graphics, of course, the version becomes little heavier than the other versions, but still it's quite fast operating system to work with. So I'm taking these tutorials from the scratch, so anybody who is not familiar with Linux or Linux Mint, they can easily install and work with it. So in the previous tutorial, which you can find the link in the description also, I've talked about just a brief introduction about Linux Mint, what different desktop editions we have, and what are the differences between all three different desktop editions, what are the system requirements, what features are being added. So this is what I have already talked about in my previous video. And of course, this video we are going to see the installation on VMware Workstation, and then later we probably see how we can dual boot it, and also we will see the features and the environment of the Linux Mint. So meanwhile, of course, it is getting installed. You can see the look and feel of this Linux Mint itself. So here you have your shortcuts to different places. Um, Here you have all applications. Here you can go for different categories which are available inside Linux Mint. Of course, you will be able to see all these features even after installation, but because we are trying this edition as a dry run, so it's available over here. You can continue testing or you can restart now. So I can just simply restart it. And while restarting, definitely I'm going to remove the CD-ROM from it. Alright, and I'm going to press enter over here because it says remove the installation media and restart. Yeah, press enter. Now this time my CD-ROM is not there, so it will boot from my local hard drive of this machine itself. So if you see over here, it was quite fast in boot process. And here I am in my Linux Mint installed edition. It has its own welcome screen, and of course we will look into this welcome screen and some other features in the next tutorial. Thank you for watching this walkthrough.
Thank you so much for watching for our next walkthrough videos. Please comment, subscribe to my channel, and let me know if you need to know more about any of the products I'm talking about.